Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kids Media Club podcast. I'm Andy Williams.
Hello, I'm Jo Redfern.
And I'm Emily Horgan. And today we are going to be chatting about the new inquiry in the UK where MPs are investigating children's TV and video content. So the government has opened an inquiry. They're looking for people to submit evidence. It's being run by the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. This follows the Ofcom headlines, I think, that were covered in Kidscreen. They've been covered in many places, showing the shift in viewing habits for young people. Surprise, surprise, with television viewing dropping and YouTube now the most used app. The inquiry is looking to examine how to ensure those making original high-quality content can continue and how it can be made easier to find it online. It's also exploring issues relating to the parental control of online content, the potential positive and negative effects of how children watch TV and video content, on those effects on their health and development, and wider issues relating to the sector's contribution to the economy and its importance to the UK cultural identity. So there's loads of it's basically an inquiry. People can make submissions to this. I think sometime before September 4th, and there's a couple of questions that they're kicking out to try to stimulate response, stimulate thinking, and stimulate submissions.
It doesn't say you can't do it in audio format. Submit as responses as a podcast, right?
Podcast. Let me tap podcast.
I feel like we could do a little interstitial here, like let's get political.
Oh dear.
Okay, right. I've had too much coffee. Right, I might crash it anyway.
I was getting very nervous then because the one thing nobody wants to hear is me singing.
Another slug of coffee. Who knows what's coming next? Right. What are the questions, Emily?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, so this is a UK-based inquiry from the government there, where you guys are. Although I do find myself an insider outside of the UK industry, having spent the most of my career working over there a lot since moving back.
That's a great position, though. You have objectivity.
Yes, I do. So the first question is, who's commissioning and making original high-quality TV and video content for children and young audience in the UK? And question 1.1 is, how can they be best supported to continue to make more?
I mean, what does commissioning mean? Because I'm not massively clear on what commissioning means. Does it mean fully funding? Does it mean part funding? What is the definition of commissioning these days? And I've been out of TV for 5 years, so I don't actually know.
Yeah, I had a similar thought, and they're questions that beg other questions as soon as you read them, because it does feel like it comes very much from these questions are being posed from a traditional broadcasting mindset.
Yes.
And whenever you have questions about who is producing high quality children's content, the other question it beggars for me is who's deciding who is producing high quality children's content? Who decides what high quality children's content is, really?
It's they are quite loaded. The questions are loaded.
Yes, they're so
in
loaded.
a nasty way, in a well-intended way, I would say. But
immediately it puts a certain lens on it. We the three of us, but I certainly think in terms of IP. So if I look at Bluey, which I would say is a great example and would be a great example to use in a lot of these questions and discussions, but I think about Bluey as an IP. And we know full well that Bluey is a multi-platform IP might have been conceived of originally for TV, but very quickly embraced different formats and different platforms. So high quality TV and video content, if you say high quality IP for UK kids, then for me, that would immediately put a different lens on it and maybe open up discussion as to all of those different ways of delivering good quality content to British.
I like that a lot, Jo Redfern. And I think, do you know what?
Yeah, I think that's a very good angle.
It comes with that weight of brand building, because with IP is not just just a piece of content for audience in a particular country to consume by nature. And some IPs can definitely be local. I can definitely think of some local ones here in Ireland. But it's that kind of potency, right, of an IP that it has the ability to exist beyond just being a piece of video content that you watch on a television. It connects with you. Obviously, there's certain elements of brand building involved too. So, and I think that steps quite nicely towards the need for, or at least in most of the cases, to consider an IP globally. Yes, there are local IPs, but having that lens to have it open to it being broader, I think is one of the things that could help in certain instances.
Yeah, and I wonder whether part of the resistance maybe to viewing it like that is because I think the legacy for a lot of kids media producers is that the TV series is the thing, and actually often there's quite a lot of snobbery or suspicion about the toys or the games because that's moving into something that's seen as being more commercial. And I think that often then is seen as being antithetical to it being high quality content.
The pure intention of good kids content cannot be commercial at its
I'm sorry, I couldn't disagree with that more.
Absolutely.
To shout rubbish.
But I think that may be underpinning some of the assumptions within those questions.
Yeah. Oh, I've no doubt it does. Now, people will cite Paw Patrol as basically a big long toy TV ad. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that Bluey's got a really successful merch business, but Bluey would be treated very differently to Paw Patrol. But both of them, their very existence depends on being able to commercialize it.
Yes.
So you need to have, and toys aren't all plastic, rubbish. You've got toys that are educational, that support learning, emotional development, fine motor skills, everything. So to think that it's antithetical to go out there with the intention of ultimately becoming a toy line, if you scale, that somehow that cheapens or sullies the quality of your video content, I think it's just daft. It's just daft. It's so far out of date.
Yeah. I would say the purest expression of a child's fandom is that they want to play with your characters.
Completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And go to bed in the pajamas.
Extension of that. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, listen, let me keep you on topic because the question is asking for who is commissioning, making original high quality TV and video content. So I feel like, can we name some names? I'm going to be really surprising and I'm going to say Tractor Ted because it's like one of my favorite British movies. But I love the purity of it, and I really want.
We've not mentioned it for a while.
Yeah. I have been off my Tractor Ted game for a while, but it's left field. It's not coming from the traditional model. It's so pure. It's so
Can I throw Steve and Maggie?
British.
Can I? Yeah. I'm going to throw Steve and Maggie in alongside Tractor Ted. They sit alongside one another, and they're made with heart, from the heart.
Yeah. And listen, that's what to say, definitely Hey Dougie, right? Hey Dougie, people love Hey Dougie. From the traditional avenue too. I'm happy to name one name. It's Peppa, right?
Yeah. Right.
Peppa's been absolute workhorse of British culture and British kids media success stories. Okay, other ones. Let's think older.
Good
Pregnant pause.
Who is commissioning high quality TV?
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going with that question, which is, it's quite a narrow selection.
Yeah.
BBC.
And if we're thinking older,
BBC,
this is where it gets very grey.
Yeah, Channel 5.
Yeah, Channel 5.
Sky
BBC
Kids
3,
up until recently.
Yeah. BBC 3, Glow Up. There are tons of teens that watch Glow Up. They would be, in theory, classed as the same audience that would be around CBBC drama age. I know plenty of 13, 14-year-old girls who are obsessed with Glow Up.
Is so high quality?
Glow Up is great. It's it's basically a makeup artist competition.
Yeah,
so they do everything. Yeah. But
It's not too reality TV. Am I like with the snobs? Like
yes, yeah, but I mean, again, who is the arbiter of quality?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that comes down to, I mean, I think some of those questions, when I'm reading between the lines on those, I think, what would some people want to be that kind of hierarchy of who defines what good quality is? And I think this might be one angle, would be number one, Ofcom, number two, broadcasters and platforms, number three, maybe researchers and educators. And then I think number four would be the children themselves.
The audience.
The audience.
Well, we can't trust those bloody kids to determine what's quality, can we?
Okay. And so flipping that on its head, I wondered, do we have examples of something that people wouldn't automatically think of as high quality children's content that we think would qualify?
Yeah.
I mean, is something like, probably people will be throwing something at the computer or tearing their headphones out in disgust, but would something like Mr. Beast qualify?
Well, see, we're going to get into what is quality and how is it delivered and where, because there's a snobbery about the method of delivery. Now, there can be a snobbery about the method of delivery, but it still be high quality content.
Yep.
In my view. So I think we need to take great care to separate those two.
Yeah.
But in terms of quality, I mean, it's interesting with Mr. Beast. If you follow his journey, he's had to get bigger and bigger and even more sensational to almost feed his channel, given that he is the biggest channel in the world. I guess you get stuck on a hamster wheel. I've heard it from creators that have got far fewer followers. But you get on a hamster wheel because you spot what works and you just have to keep doing that over and over, and usually with a slightly bigger budget or make it bigger. Yep. Hence Mr. Beast crashes trains into ravines and things like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not high quality content. Again, it comes back to this definition. I was working with a creator who makes soccer content. Now, you might look at the Sidemen and go, oh, that's low quality. But actually, when they do masterclasses or they do challenges and there's a bit of banter, but actually inherently in it, there's lots of positive messages. They're having fun. It's not sweary. They've gone and they've hired a football pitch. They're showing off their skills. They're maybe ribbing their mate who fluffs a shot, but actually they get really... I saw one, Manny, who's a creator I was chatting to recently. He made a video with Miniminter, who's one of the Sidemen, but they got one of the best female goalkeepers to, basically save their shots. She completely humiliated them. But in a way, it was great because they were uplifting this female goalkeeper. She was awesome.
And everyone was having fun. It was all kind and it was all
kind, all fun, bit of a laugh. Angry Jin showed up at one point. He's always the comedy relief. He's another one of the Sidemen who's been featured in Baller League. But you know what? Good video. I watched it for an hour. Couldn't see anything that I wouldn't want even a younger kid watching, particularly if they were football mad.
Okay. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving because we're only one question down, okay?
Okay. Can I just add one thing to that, though, which was that I think what Joe's comment kind of touches on is that I don't think the audience think in terms of good quality content. I think they think in terms of, do I enjoy it? Is it fun?
Yes. Okay. Now, I understand sometimes we have to force our kids to eat the broccoli, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I guess my point I was making, just to build on what you said, Andy, is we have to trust at some point that they know what is good and they enjoy watching because they watch it again. And that doesn't mean that they're all addicted to the dopamine scroll. Actually, they're pretty good at judging what's quality and what's not. You've seen them when they swipe away because they think something's not engaging. So maybe, the fact that they were fourth on your list, Andy, when we were ranking who determines quality, maybe I might give them a little bit more credit. Anyway,
I'd be inclined to maybe flip it on its head a bit, that list.
Okay. So
sorry,
getting on to something else.
Come on, question master.
Getting on to something else children can't be ours to think about. How does the range of content and genres for children vary between that provided by public service media, subscription channels, and both short and long form video sharing platforms? Which audiences by age or other characteristics are currently being underserved? And how can we increase the amount of news and factual programming made for children on TV and online?
Yeah. Right.
We need to break it down. These are quite long and convoluted questions. They could be broken down into several questions each. But
it is, and they're weighted. They're weighted in a way. And it's funny because for me, right, for this being, from the cultural committee, like that's not culture is kind of devoid from that whole question. It's like platforms.
Yes,
we're paying for it.
Yeah,
demos.
Yeah.
News, anyway, it's kind of funny in that, but I don't know, I think there is a real focus, particularly in the UK, about this question of public service funding versus other funding, and the question of news and factual programming is important, but I think I just think short form for news is so untapped, and that needs to blow up.
Absolutely. The news movement.
We had the news movement on, didn't we?
Yeah.
Goodness, that's a brilliant organisation.
Yeah.
We had oh gosh, remind me. She was the current affairs reporter, wasn't she, that we had on? And then since then, I've met a second person who worked for the news movement, Emma, who was their sports reporter, who's now doing some work for BBC Sport, ironically. And the way that she presents sports news on TikTok is brilliant. She was dispatched to Wimbledon recently to do a lot of their social channel news reporting around Wimbledon. Just pitch perfect. Really good. So I do think you're right, Emily. I think that's massively untapped. And actually, arguably, if we're talking public service, a space that they could own and be trusted and
have the blue tick.
Massive tick.
Yeah.
I would probably pay my license fee for that alone, just to know that my kids could have it on their phone and they were getting objective, good quality, short form news.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the news movement was an example of because the tension is between user-generated content is you're going to have a massive variety of voices and opinions, but it maybe isn't going to be fact-checked in the same way.
I think that was the word. So she joined us.
And then you've got the top-down approach, which is more rigorous checking of facts.
Oh, she wouldn't say that. Sorry, you're saying germ-fluencers are less rigorous.
Yeah, well, maybe just because of the scope and variety of people that.
Sorry, I thought you were saying that like a company like the news movement, or you know what I mean, a service like the news movement. So
yeah, I suppose where I'm coming from is that some of these questions, I feel like they're underneath them is that tension between a more of a free-for-all user-generated environment of YouTube and more of a top-down established broadcasting viewpoint. And I wonder where the survey or where the discussion is leading to is whether there's some sort of middle ground that's going to arise where traditional broadcasters have a more favoured shop window position on social media.
And gosh, doesn't that tension underpin a lot of what we talk about?
Yeah.
Broadcasters relinquishing a bit of their control with relation to their IP and the content that they create, and also reaching out and trying to bridge the gap between them and UGC creators a little bit more and actually learn from one another. Because there's a lot of UGC creators that would give their right arm to get chance to learn from established TV producers or broadcasters or whomever. But that tension exists in the middle where it feels like both are unwilling to engage with the other, or they haven't been given the mechanisms to do it. And that, I read that question again. How does the range of content for children vary between that provided by public service media subscription channel and both? It's like, well, I would rather it say, how could the range of content for kids be divvied up? Because actually it feels like it's been that way for so long, it's kind of just set. And maybe rather than just stating how it is now, which is what that question asks you to do, look at how could it? Where does public service media fit within this new paradigm? It could fit in a completely different layer, and it could and should do that. And then how can those creators who are creating they've just got a YouTube Shorts channel, but they're trying to articulate news, or they're trying to be a Miss Rachel. How do you then bring those in and support them? It feels like a lot of the subtext of these questions is, how do we support TV? And if we go back to the IP question, how do we support IP? No matter who's creating it, would be a better angle.
Yep.
Definitely.
Agreed.
Okay. Next one. Finding children's TV and video content online. How can it be made easier to find original, high-quality TV and video content for children online? How can attribution of public service children's content on video sharing platforms be improved? Should it be improved? I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean,
who cares about it being improved? Do kids?
Yeah, and also, if you want attribution of public service children's content, create a proper CBeebies channel on YouTube, programmed full of full episodes.
Yeah,
that's the biggest attribution you can get.
So where I think that's coming from, or where I think they'd like I think where the person posing the question would like to get to as an answer is that they'd like to turn on the connected TV where you turn on to YouTube, and for CBeebies to have a prominent place on the permanent homepage that people can then go to. I think it's about trying to give more of a platform for traditional broadcasters to be discovered on YouTube in a way that, a bit like, when you're on Sky, it's better to have a Sky channel kind of in the lower numbers than in the higher numbers.
Top of the EPG.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that's how I read between the lines of that question. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
No, I think it's a valid point. And if you ever listen to Marion Ronchet, she speaks very eloquently about the CTV kind of operating system wars. I mean, if you ever dig into that even just a little bit, it's very aggressive and it's very competitive. Who gets to own the operating systems on these connected TVs? Who gets to own the interface? Who gets to have their app front and center? I mean, that's a whole podcast in and of itself. But again, I think you make a really good point. These are the discussion. Public service or the creators of original high quality TV for kids can't just assume that they're going to show up there or be put there just because of who they are. I think this is it's a dog eat dog world now. It's competitive. You've got to go out there. You've got to sell.
Yep.
Certainly the BBC is not used to selling very much. You've got to go and fight for your spot next to that YouTube icon.
Yeah, I suppose maybe the concern of we had Melly on the show last week, and I suppose for somebody like that has their own YouTube channel, maybe there's an element where they would like a setup on YouTube that encourage them to create content. But I think there's a risk that the solutions that might come out of this would mean amplifying traditional broadcasters on YouTube. I'm not necessarily amplifying smaller kids content creators.
Yeah, it's looking to maintain the status quo, right? It's weighted by that. So, like, how do we increase attribution? I would break down that question as being quite honest, should we? Why isn't it there already? Like, before we're deciding that is a problem that needs to be solved, let's look at it in more detail. But it's maintaining those curators as well, and if the curators are losing relevance, it's not a good idea to algorithmically prop that up,
Yeah.
Or if there's, and listen, I do think public service, media that's being funded by the public and has a requirement by nature to do good, there definitely should be some discovery juice given to that, you know?
Yeah. When you come back to attribution as well, and I remember from having worked at the BBC, numerous discussions about the BBC blocks and where they should go, beginning of programs, baked into the screen, this blah, blah, blah. If we think about attribution that way, so there's attribution of being the deliverer and iPlayer or whatever. But similarly, when I think about it, again, from a brand point of view, if you're thinking that attribution really is only within iPlayer, you're almost putting the handcuffs on yourself. But back to Melly's point, if you have been commissioned or you've been part of the BBC ecosystem, but then if you were allowed to go and make your own fast channel, so you could sit as an icon on a CTV homepage or your YouTube channel, but everything was, you've got to have the BBC sting at the beginning or you've got to have the blocks on screen. If by taking those handcuffs off, you think even just about the BBC blocks, but that logo then would be in a million, probably billion more places across these digital platforms. That's attribution too. And if thinking about it psychologically, it could be then that you're consuming content all over YouTube on various channels. But if you keep seeing these blocks, it's like, okay, that's the BBC, right? They're making stuff that I like. That's attribution. Might not have been consumed within a BBC iPlayer app.
But this is again back to something I was ranting about on here a few weeks ago about that, the inherent vicious circle of the local remit of public service. And listen, BBC, this is a UK inquiry. That's why we're talking about them. It could go for any of them, but that local remit shackles both the service and IP or shows that come up in the service from taking those global shots.
Yes,
so
agree.
That mindset, which is really challenging. Like I think, like CBeebies is such a wonderful brand. You know, it's a wonderful IP, right? To your point,
Absolutely.
Joe. And I've seen it done. I saw it done in my time at Disney with Disney Junior. How wonderful a preschool brand can be built globally, you know. And I think there's space there for CBeebies to own a different profile than Disney Junior. But you know, it's like, but if it's only ever going to be focused in the UK, which I understand why it's focused in the UK, because you get those that are paying for it, but it neuters it, right?
It does. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
And whilst it's important for UK kids to have their lives reflected back at them and this sense of Britishness, UKness, you know, that's great. But they're also global citizens and they are watching K-pop Demon Hunters with their older siblings. They're watching content from the US. They're watching Wednesday. Their diet is much broader than it ever was before. But it almost feels like this is like, how do we get them back to just consuming UK flavored stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's folly. It's folly. And I think the two can go together.
Yeah. We're going to get onto that in a bit more in a little while. Okay. So I'm going to go on to the next question because I want to rant about this. How effective are the tools available for parents to control what children are watching on public service media, subscription channels, and video sharing platforms? I am happy to go on the record personally and professionally to say that on video sharing platforms, YouTube Kids is really painful as a parent. It's difficult. It's difficult to use. It's difficult to curate through. The fact that they've rolled the YouTube Kids profile into it like an overall YouTube profile now, like the way Netflix, you know, you have your owner profile and you have your kids profile, makes access to all of the other stuff on YouTube for kids so easy. And kids do go look at it. It's the difference with Netflix and YouTube is that, you know, kids don't go, kids a certain age maybe, but like a preschooler or a young kid isn't really going to go looking for Dahmer, right? Do you know what I mean? Like they're not really looking for stuff in the parent section. The problem with YouTube is that the curation is so narrow that kids will naturally go looking for stuff that's outside of that ecosystem. You know, whether it's a creator that hasn't turned on their kid, the kids setting on their profile because it'll absolutely do the dirty on them from a monetization perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and like, so like we follow like a load of really awesome model builders, really awesome Lego, like extreme Lego, but like, I mean, Lego in the extreme of Steam, like, like how to build like a Lego biplane, or how to send a Lego roller coaster into space. I mean, actually do that. So all that, like,
and I
really
bet, and that stuff isn't kids content.
lots of that stuff isn't in the kids section.
Yeah,
No, I think
you
it's
know,
like Mark Rober. I don't think Mark Rober is made for kids. Yeah, he's an ex-NASA scientist. He's brilliant.
Yeah. So YouTube Kids really falls short, I would
Yeah,
say.
part of
And
that is the monetization as well.
and it's the
restricted curation.
monetization, and this is something we talked about before, because that's one of, like, and that's what Melly talked about, right? And I think that's something that, you know,
there are a lot of people that want to make kids content for YouTube Kids because there's the monetization isn't there.
Yeah, if you tag your content kids on YouTube, you are bazookaing, you know, between 50 and 70% of your revenue.
Yeah, crazy.
So go fund with that, people. So yeah, on the video sharing platform, I think I'm happy to go on record to say, like, I think it's tricky. I mean, if the tools are not effective for public service media, you know, iPlayer is a fine, safe place for control. Is it safe? Is it? And I would say ditto Netflix, right? Those are fine, safe places, generally speaking, for control. Are they fine for discovery? I think that's a problem. And this is one of the key issues, is that, like, YouTube, on the flip side, is amazing for discovery. It's bad for control. Whereas traditional streaming platforms are good for control. You can trust the curated content that's on there, but bad for discovery. And trying to, like, that idea of resurfacing content, that idea of growing content, they just don't have it in the DNA, I think. Rant over. Do you guys know anything to that?
No, I think you've nailed it. Yeah, I think you've nailed it. And let's talk about literacy in terms of controls. I think we're kind of in a no man's land at the moment, where we've got a generation of parents who find it, who aren't very digitally literate in new platforms, and who find it quite hard to do that. But I do wonder if that is a problem that's going to lessen, because we will have a next generation of parents who will have grown up with YouTube as their primary platform, and Roblox too, and will be much more au fait with how you go about curating and controlling your experience there when they have kids of their own.
That's hopeful. That is hopeful, because I would say, like, it's tough enough, and not only is it my job to do it, to understand this stuff as a parent, it is my job to understand it as a job. So you know, it, like, that's not everybody has that luxury. But okay.
And so just one thing on that, do you think, so you're saying that the tools as a parent for YouTube weren't particularly satisfying, there are kind of issues with that.
Yeah, I'm saying they're shite, Andy.
They're shite, okay. Do you think the just the abundance of very short form content on YouTube as well is an issue, or is that a separate issue from parental control?
Are you talking about shorts?
Yeah. So kind of the swiping dopamine.
Yeah, well, I've made the point before, and I speak from personal experience. I think that shorts content, the mental impact of shorts content needs to be looked at, and I would say that it shouldn't be available for preschoolers. That experience. Yeah. And what age as the upper end? We can get into that. There's a conversation to be had, but at least preschoolers. It's actually interesting to see. Feel free for anybody to shout me out if I'm wrong on this, but my read on Miss Rachel's YouTube channel is she doesn't post shorts. She doesn't post shorts.
Yeah,
she posts shorts to TikTok that are parent
facing.
Yeah, and Instagram Reels, but she doesn't post YouTube Shorts, which is on the kids platform, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good call.
Yeah, that's very values driven, which I appreciate.
And talking about the age limit, do you think so the controls on something like YouTube Kids, do you think there should be a difference of the controls that are placed on very young content and then content that's for, I don't know, over 7 or over 8?
There is a distinction, for sure. And this is where it all gets super messy, and everyone goes, "Oh, it's so hard, it's messy," because a 6-year-old living in one place is not the same as a 6-year-old living in another place.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I mean, it needs to be a different experience. It needs to not be called YouTube Kids for a start, because any 6-year-old with any sort of street cred isn't going to be going on there.
Yeah. The problem I always thought CBBC had is that at the point where people are supposed to watch CBBC, they don't really want to think of themselves as watching children's BBC.
And that's where Netflix have done phenomenally well by creating family entertainment that's grown up enough, isn't patronizing at all.
Totally.
That age group, maybe 6, is maybe a bit young to be watching Wednesday, but
Totally. I mean, it's
you can swing into.
Yeah, it's a bit of a digression, but I wonder in some ways whether a lot of the audience for K-pop Demon Hunters think of it as children's content.
I think so. Not with a name like K-pop Demon Hunters.
No. But we talk about it as if it is.
I think, we do. But I do agree it's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Health and child development. What evidence is there that TV and video content that children watch and how they watch it can contribute positively to their health, learning, development, and negatively to their health, learning, development? Now, I'm happy to go out the gate and say, child development is not my speciality, and I think if I was putting in submission on this particular question, I'd be turning to people who have the evidence. I don't have that type of data in my hard drive. I have different type of data, but I think on the positive side, I would say learning in so many ways, social emotional learning, there is so many positives to TV. It unites people, unites families. It's beautiful stories are the things that we've all grown up with, and I think there's lots of positives. On the negative side,
sorry, can I just jump in with a positive?
Okay, we'll see.
And one of the things that, having observed my own teenagers go through with YouTube, that I do think is overwhelmingly positive is their ability. I mean, they use it as a search tool. When they're learning how to make cheese on toast, or it can be so positive. How to boil an egg, how to tie your shoelaces. I mean, that's for younger kids, but there's so much stuff on there that is really positive to learning and development. It's not just all mindless. It's where they're going to satisfy and to sate their curiosity. And actually, the more good quality creators that show up on there, like you were talking about the builders, Emily. I remember watching a few years ago a video that my kids showed me of these engineers who were trying to make a lightsaber in real life.
Oh, amazing. Love it.
They were going through it, but it was interesting because they were testing, it was engineering, it was solder, it was how do you get the lightsaber to it.
They were failing. They were picking themselves up again.
Exactly. And it was brilliant. And then, of course, it ended with two grown men, pretend lightsaber fighting in a garage, which is just hilarious. But
amazing.
But that is the kind of quality content that I think YouTube can excel at, in terms of when that spark enters their mind, that question, they go there. And if they're served 1 or 2 videos or channels that can answer it and feed that curiosity, then likely it could awaken something in them that turns into a career or a lifelong passion or hobby.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where I think YouTube really has the advantage over more traditional broadcast.
Yeah, and in that example you give, it's a great example of how, well, it feels like the people creating that content are the audience.
Yes.
Because how do I create my own lightsaber is a question that would have occurred to loads of people that love watching content on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're brilliant at that.
Okay, let's touch on the negative stuff though, because there's lots of weird and damaging stuff on the internet, right? That's a given. I always think of there's one YouTube channel, and I have reported them, and they're called Toy Factory, and they do some stuff that's fine, but they do some stuff that's very unnerving. So let me just explain this to you. It's a train, trains are a big deal in my house. It's a train with the face of a clown made out of a balloon, and then they pop the balloon and the clown is like, I'm dead. It's very weird and icky and clowns and so there's lots of negative stuff on there. There's lots of bad actors. There's people who are making content purely for engagement, right? Be damned as to whether it's creating any value in a kid's life. And I do think there's a lot of people out there who are getting away with saying, well, it's educational because ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and you're like, kids learn their colors and their letters and their numbers at one really specific stage of their life, and then they don't ever learn them again. So you know, like that actually, that life cycle is really quite narrow. You know, we talked about the shorts interface, that dopamine interface, and I do have concerns about that interface.
I know.
You know, I can't speak to any of them from a scientific point of view. I just know what I've seen in my own life. So there are negatives there, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. There's wherever there are, for every good quality creator that feeds a spark of curiosity, there'll be one, probably more nefarious creators.
Yeah. And
I don't have an answer
Yeah.
to that. You know, it's because that happens across all platforms, and it happens in life too.
I know, but the internet is worse for it, and this is what I would say. Like, and one of the things we haven't talked about is mental health from, you know, a body image point of view, all that kind of stuff. And like, there was an article shared recently, I think it was from the Atlantic, about, you know, we've been terrorized by the news into thinking that when kids go outside, they're in danger or being kidnapped or whatever. So they're kept in and supervised, then put on devices, and because you see them, you have the mistaken and misguided view that they're safe.
Yeah,
and actually they're far less safe being let loose online than they are being let loose on most people's neighborhoods.
Yep. I don't know what the answer is to that. It's a societal question. I think maybe we haven't got enough time to sort that.
Okay. Yeah, no, difficult. Okay, right. Wider benefits of children's TV. How does children's TV made in the UK contribute to the UK's culture and identity, and contribute to our cultural and economic exports?
Well, I think we've touched upon it can contribute to the UK's culture and identity. That doesn't mean it should only be served within the UK and created looking inwards. I think it can do both. It can tick those boxes, but it can be conceived of and distributed in a way that is like, and hey, the rest of the world might love this too. Like we said, Squid Game. Netflix is openly saying they're looking at more Korean content. We've got Bluey that comes out of Australia. We had Mighty Little Bean, which came out of India. We've got content that still ticks a lot of those boxes in terms of identity, learning and culture that aren't just exclusive to UK kids. That's just kids as they're growing up. But I think you articulate it so well. Well, we all have. It feels like a lot of creators are being kneecapped because they're being told that there's a certain way to create kids' TV and video for UK audiences, and it has to be done that way. And to do it any other way it then takes away from creating content that reflects UK's culture and identity. And I don't think it's necessarily true. I think there's kids in the UK that have learned a heck of a lot more about preschool family life in Oz than they have from watching something, from watching Bluey, than from watching something that's purely made for them. I don't think it differs that much.
Yeah, and how easy is it to legislate for culture? Would legislation have created the Beatles or Rolling Stones or Oasis and Blur? And I just feel like that question. I think there's a way in which the industry supports culture by providing jobs and funding and opportunities. So I think it does it in that respect. But I suppose what makes me nervous about the cultural question is that it feels like then you start to have boxes that need to be ticked to demonstrate that this content is kind of promoting British culture, and I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know what that is always my question, you guys. I don't get it, because I need an insider outsider, right? Like, is it culturally relevant content? I'm like, what is that? Do they have to have English accents, or does it need to be?
Blimey!
Does it need to be located somewhere in England or in the UK, or does it need to be like? I think of Irish culture, right? Like, Irish culture is and storytelling in Irish culture is very, very deep in our DNA. But I feel like there's less of a, how do I put this? there seems to be an underconfidence in UK because like we're like sorry, let me think about it. Andy, what's the word?
I was going to add also, there's a risk that you start playing to tropes when you say
100%
that it's about UK culture. But I'm from Yorkshire. The amount of jokes I've had to listen to over the years are like, have you got a flat cap and a whippet? Yeah. Funnily enough, I do have a
yeah, both.
But also, I've travelled. I've lived abroad. Spanish tapas is my favourite kind of food. It's not as if I don't have other parts that identify me. I'm still from Yorkshire. I'm still a British citizen from the UK. I love the UK. But I also love all of this other stuff too. But my kids are older now, but if I had them again, I would want them to experience a whole smorgasbord of content that reflects different cultures, because isn't that what is part of being British and the UK is about as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always remember that there was a great phrase that you used about Irish culture, Emily, where you said that some of it is paddywhackery.
Yeah.
I think there is a danger that you have the equivalent of kind of
British whackery,
kind of like British whackery.
Totally, but that's why I don't. It's, as I said, it's nearly down to this underconfidence about, like, I look at so some great Irish cultural exports like Bad Sisters, right? Like, and there's lots of Ireland in that show, lots of my hometown in that show actually, but like it's still a funny story, like that dark humor.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is Irish cultural export at its finest, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah, which runs through Bluey as well.
Exactly, right?
Similarly, Peaky Blinders. There's certain elements that are related to Birmingham and the West Midlands that are in Peaky Blinders, where you hear that some of that vernacular is being used in North America now. It's like,
but it wears it lightly, even though it wears it very overtly, right? Like Paddington, Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
Like. Anyway, maybe it's just that one.
I feel like there's maybe someone somewhere that sits in the corridors of government that holds the manual, the almanac on what is what is UK culture and identity. But I do think it's fluid, it changes over time, and actually it's different for kids. And it's almost, whilst it is important for kids, I do think it's as equally important for kids to get a broader viewpoint.
Yeah. Do you know what the most important part of all these questions are? And they've saved it right to the end.
Yep.
Wider benefits of children's TV to cultural and economic exports. And this is something that we've talked about through this whole chinwag. It's like actually having export mentality at the center of great British content like Paddington, like Harry Potter.
Yes.
Is actually the key to unlocking the biggest impact, the biggest benefit.
Yeah. We're an island nation. We've been traders for millennia. Yep. So why should we not think about that in terms of making kids TV? Like you say, economic exports. Well, let's take it out there to the world. I mean, that is actually one of the BBC Studios' remit, is to take British content out there to the world.
Yeah.
So why do we not think about it at its inception, at its commissioning as that?
Yeah,
absolutely. That happens.
Yeah, it goes back to that point about you've got to take your shots globally if they're going to really travel. You can't be too local in that mindset.
Being local is a risk. Sometimes it pays off, but it is a risk.
Yeah, and there is a way to be local and global.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah, you're local.
Local.
Sorry. Okay, is that enough ranting for today?
I think
So we're going to submit this to the inquiry. Do we just send them a link to the episode?
Yeah. Well, listen, the thing is, I would say to anybody who has reacted to anything that we've said and the questions on this that we've covered here today, if you have an interest in UK television that demonstrates interest, I think you can basically submit. So
we should put a link to the submission alongside the episode in the show notes and also when we post it.
So if you disagree with us, just record yourself. Record your reaction and
what they said on the Kids Media Club.
Yeah, we can then cut it into a future episode. That's a great idea.
Cool. Okie dokie. Right.
Fabulous.
Do the sign off, Andy.
Okay. So thanks very much, everyone, for listening. And please like and subscribe. Maybe go into the archives and check out some older episodes. And we will see you next week.
Nice discovering out there.
Yeah.